Crowds, mass behavior, and social movements.
Have you ever been to a school assembly or a concert?
Are your clothes reflective of the latest trends?
Do you sometimes protest to support public causes?
These are all examples of collective behavior, the ways people act in crowds, social movements, or throughout entire cultures or societies. Collective behavior is usually spontaneous. It can be unpredictable, localized in certain specific areas, or dispersed across the entire globe. Collective behavior changes between the groups that form in our lives. We can engage in collective behavior with people we hardly know, or with family members and friends.
One of the simplest forms of collective behavior is crowds. Crowds are simply a group of people gathered together. When you are in a store or at a bus stop, you are in a casual crowd. When you are at a wedding or a school assembly, you are in a conventional crowd, when all the people are there for that specific event. When you are at a sports game or a concert, you are in an expressive crowd, where people gather because there is emotional appeal. These are the most common and least dangerous crowds, and the people involved interact with each other in varying degrees.
However, one of the more dangerous crowds is the acting crowd, fueled by a single purpose. People in acting crowds often think in clear right and wrongs, and reasoned arguments do not work on these crowds. When they become violent, it is called a mob, which is dangerous for the people within the crowd. When the crowd becomes frenzied without any specific purpose, it is called a riot, which is dangerous for the surroundings of the crowd, as the people often take part in random acts of violence, like looting, setting fire to destroy or damage property, or attacking people.
Crowds are examples of very localized collective behavior, since all the people are in the same place. But people can engage in collective behavior around the world. This is called mass behavior. Mass behavior has become more prevalent in our world since technology allows us to communicate with people anywhere almost instantly. Conformity also plays a large role in mass behavior, as people change their thoughts and ideas to fit into the rest of society or the expectations of a certain group.
Rumor and gossip is a form of mass behavior, rumors being unsupported information and gossip being rumors about personal information. Both spread by word of mouth and are often hard to stop unless clear and convincing information is presented.
Public opinion, or the widespread attitude of certain issues like education or gun control, is another form of mass behavior. Although public opinion can vary depending on people's lives, it can also be manipulated by people in power to serve a purpose. Propaganda is a popular way of doing this.
Mass behavior can sometimes have very negative effects on societies and groups. An example is panic and mass hysteria. Panic is a reaction to a threat that can cause people to act in irrational and self-destructive ways, which can in turn cause harm to an entire group. Panic is often more localized and affects smaller groups of people. Mass hysteria is similar to panic, but on a larger scale, as a reaction to an event. Oftentimes, if others see people screaming and running, they too will start screaming or running, even if they don't see an immediate threat or reason to act in that way.
Mass behavior also contributes to the spread of culture through fashion or fads. Fashion is the spread of a social pattern. This can involve clothing, hairstyles, furniture, and more. Fads are social patterns that exist very briefly and can involve behaviors rather than just material things, such as teenagers eating Tide Pods. Some fads can become mainstream and eventually become fashion, such as blue jeans.
The last type of collective behavior is social movements. Social movements consist of people who are promoting or resisting changes to society. Sociologists have divided social movements into three main categories. The first, redemptive social movements, are movements that seek radical changes of a small group. The second, reformative social movements, are movements that seek minor changes that affect entire societies. And the last, revolutionary social movements, are movements that seek radical changes that affect large groups.
Sociologists have also developed 4 theories as to why social movements begin. The first is the deprivation theory, involving things like income or equal rights. The second is the mass society theory, which gives people a sense of belonging and power, such as neo-Nazis and supremacists. The third is social concern theory, which could involve things like free education and healthcare. And finally, there is the structural strain theory, which involves revolutionary ideas like declaring independence of a country.
No matter how we go about our day, we're constantly interacting with other people and therefore engaging in collective behavior. Even with the smallest and closest of friend groups, we can catch ourselves spreading a bit of gossip or expressing our concern for parts of society. Collective behavior is important to all societies, even though it can become dangerous. It gives societies ways to connect and creates a bond even between complete strangers. For the rest of the day, be aware of what types of collective behavior you participate in, which crowds you're in, why you chose the shirt you're wearing, what rumors you spread, and you'll be surprised at how collective behavior affects your entire life.